Imagine being determined to see over a wall. Standing on tiptoes? Useless. Climbing a nearby tree? Better, but the perch is precarious and it's too far from the wall, and just not tall enough. And the view? Frustratingly limited. Next, you drag over a makeshift ladder. It feels like progress until it wobbles and you stop, or you continue and it tips over, sending you crashing to the ground. Then, you stumble upon a three-legged stool. Suddenly, you're standing tall, close to the wall, with a stable, clear view. No wobbling, no tumbling. The perfect vantage point. The lesson? The best solutions don't just appear, they're uncovered through persistence. This is the heart of the allegory of the wall. And the symbols? The wall? It's the obstacle blocking your vision, progress, or understanding. The tree, the ladder, and the three-legged stool? They're different strategies for overcoming it, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. Simple enough, but when applied to Zen training, the allegory becomes far more profound. Let's bring it into focus with a look at some actual traditional Zen training. Picture a 7-day silent retreat with the late Zen master Joshu Sasaki, raw, unfiltered, and intense. A single day looked much like this. Hours of seated meditation, long stretches of walking meditation, chanting, bowing, formal meals, and formal work periods. A 1-hour formal lecture on the teaching of Zero by Sasaki. And tucked in between all this, 4 one-on-one sessions with Sasaki himself. Enough formality for one day? You bet. But with some reflection, we can boil all this activity down to just 3 critical elements. Namely, a teaching, engagement with a teacher, and a practice. So let's map these elements to our 3-legged stool. The first leg, a teaching. Teaching is the foundation. It sets the theoretical framework for all that comes with. In Sasaki's retreats, this came through formal lectures, giving students the necessary principles to guide their training. The second leg, engagement with a teacher. Engagement with a teacher is where you test your understanding. Those one-on-one sessions with Sasaki, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's raw, direct feedback that pushes you to confront your understanding head-on. The third leg, a practice. Practice is where students embody the teachings and integrate the feedback they've received. This includes everything else: seated and walking meditation, chanting, formal meals, work periods, and even hot springs. All are practice. Practice is the engine driving Zen training. But it can't be the only thing. Circling back to the allegory of the wall, we can now shed some additional light onto our foray into Zen training. The tree? The tree represents the problem of relying solely on a practice, or relying solely on a teaching. While the tree is indeed readily available, even with climbing as high as you can go, you will never be able to see clearly over the wall. Getting closer? Yes, but not close enough. The ladder? The ladder symbolizes the combining of a teaching and a practice. It does get you closer, but without the engagement with a teacher, which is necessary to test your understanding, it will always be unstable. Being supported by the wall, the very obstacle you're trying to overcome, it becomes shakier as your understanding evolves. And then, you either stop climbing or you crash. Finally, the 3-legged stool symbolizes the combining of all 3 critical elements: a teaching, engagement with a teacher, and a practice. It's stable, reliable, and adaptable. You can move it close to the wall without depending on the wall itself, giving you a clear, consistent view every time. So the real question is, what does your training look like? Are you perched precariously in a tree, a practice alone, or a teaching alone? Are you balancing unsteadily on a wobbly ladder, a teaching and a practice, relying on the very thing holding you back? Or are you standing solidly on a three-legged stool, a teaching, engagement with a teacher, and a practice, close enough to the wall to see over, but never depending on it? Because in Zen and life, ultimately the clarity of your view depends on the quality of your stance.